Hey, Central Indiana, if you want a nicer, newer car you can afford, go for the gold during our Old Ride Relay. Monica Peck here from Hare Chevrolet. If your old ride's a loser, hand it off to us and we'll give you up to $4,000 more than Kelley Blue Book value based on the price of the car you pick. Here at Hare Chevrolet, we're focused on affordability. Our dream team of solution specialists hustle hard to help you find a car you love for a monthly payment that fits your budget. You could even drive a 2024 Chevy Equinox for just $279 per month. So get in the game and hand off your old ride, because you could get up to $4,000 more than Kelley Blue Book value based on the price of the car you pick. But hurry, this race is on and this deal won't last long. Together, let's drive at Hare Chevrolet, a dealer for the people. Next to Walmart on Highway 37 in Noblesville. Call 877-666-1414 or see all the deals at harechevy.com.
Credit requires bank approval. Vehicle purchase price determines actual trade allowance. Stock number RL367818. 2-year ultra low mileage lease. Must qualify for all incentives. Not all customers will qualify. Negative equity may be refinanced. Kelley Blue Book is not affiliated with Hare Chevrolet. Offer absolutely ends August 31st, 2024.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same, but is 95% cheaper? And you can get it online? Go to hims.com/joy. Through Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, and the process is 100% online. To start your free online visit, go to hims.com/joy. That's HIMS.com/JOY.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for...
It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy's Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to tune in. Big show today. A lot of thoughts, a lot of things to talk about. Plenty of things to talk about. Hassan Reddick, I guess an outside linebacker for the Jets, has requested a trade. Are you really a member of the team if you've literally never done anything for them? It's Tuesday, so you know I got to break out a nice little top 10 Tuesday. Can't wait to get into that. I've got a little bit on Sam Ehlinger. I do think that he provides some value to this team. Dan Orlovsky did this top 10 list where he lists the best quarterbacks at every trait. You'll kind of understand whenever I get to that. And top of the hour, 11 o'clock, Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts is set to join me. Can't wait. Like I said, today is absolutely loaded. I've got many, many, many thoughts, and I want to start with Hassan Reddick. Now, the New York Jets, it's a dumpster fire. Okay, I feel like there's something new coming out of there every single day. Every single day, there's something new coming out of Jets camp, whether it's, Aaron Rodgers. He was talking yesterday about, something about the vaccine, which I'm like, can we stop talking about vaccines that happened, 4 years ago? Can we talk about anything else now? Okay, so he's talking about that. He's not showing up to OTAs, and then he, shows up to training camp, and he and Garrett Wilson are yelling at each other. Hassan Reddick's holding out. Now he wants a trade request. Tons and tons of noise. And normally, this amount of noise would really bother me. I'd be sitting here, I'd be like, geez, man, like, can we do something to fix this? I'm out on the Jets. That's usually how I would feel. But let's just be really honest here for a second. It's the Jets. They're always loud. There's always something going on. And when you bring in a guy like Aaron Rodgers, I would like to think that you know what you're signing up for. And when it comes to Hassan Reddick, I'm like, why would they be concerned about a guy who hasn't shown up to anything? Okay, the Jets traded for him in the offseason, and they haven't refused to extend him. I just don't think that they're at a similar point when it comes to what the deal is going to look like. And it makes sense. It makes perfect sense. I wouldn't extend Hassan Reddick for a monster amount of money either if I was the Jets. He's 30 years old, which is usually when we see guys kind of start to decline a little bit, right? That's when it's like the first year that you really passed your prime. Okay, now to be fair to Hassan Reddick, he has been wildly productive over these past couple years. He's had 11 or more sacks every year the last 4 years, right? And he can do more than rush the passer. When he came into the NFL, he did, a lot more than just rush the passer. Okay, he played inside linebacker, right? They moved him around. He fit the run. Okay, so he's more than just a guy who can get after the quarterback. He can play on every down. Okay, when it comes to Hassan Reddick and just how well he's produced, he was great in Philadelphia, but it took him some time to finally produce. He's a good player. Okay, he has a lot of the traits that you want, but that isn't everything. Fit matters. Okay, we talk about fit all the time with quarterbacks. Are they going to the right system? Do they have the right head coach? Right? Like these are the questions. Fit matters, and I think that it matters for defensive players as well. When we look at Hassan Reddick, he hasn't exactly been a double-digit sack guy his entire career. He hasn't been. In fact, his first 3 years in the NFL, if you added up his total number of sacks those first 3 years, he would only be at 7.5. It wasn't until these last 4 years that he's finally turned a corner. And what happened? He got out of Arizona. Okay, Arizona moved him to, outside linebacker. He ends up in Carolina for a year, has a good year. And then these last 2 years, he's been in Philadelphia, a part of one of the better defenses in the NFL. And all of a sudden, he's really popped. The Jets have no guarantee whatsoever that he's going to continue to be a dominant player, or at least not the dominant player that he was when he was in Philadelphia. He's 30 years old. Once again, this is where we see guys kind of start to decline. Okay? And he's in a new system. Okay? His play style might not mesh well with what Robert Saleh wants to do defensively. Now, look, I doubt that Joe Douglas, the Jets general manager, would trade for a guy that they didn't think would fit well in Robert Saleh's defense. But here's the thing, just because you think something's going to go well doesn't mean that it will. Okay, the most important thing in all of this, though, and part of why I definitely wouldn't extend Hassan Reddick, is because he went back on his word. Okay, I think that, the looking professional when you're at the podium is important. I also think that not lying when you're at the podium is important. Hassan Reddick went back on his word. Here's what he said at his introductory press conference. Quote, "Whatever happens, I'm going to be happy. I'm going to give my all no matter what. That's just who I am as a person. No matter how it goes, how many years, I'm going to be here for however long I'm here for, and I'm going to give the team and the fans everything that I have." Yeah, that's a load of hooey. He hasn't done any of that. It's hard to give your all when you don't show up. All right? And if he was happy, like he said he was going to be, then he wouldn't be requesting a trade. And he's about to become even unhappier because the Jets aren't going to trade him. And I'm assuming that they aren't budging on what they want to do for this extension. Okay, but yeah, like that's the thing. Like, I don't feel bad for Hassan Reddick at all. Like, not even a little bit. Okay, like you can't go to your introductory press conference, make all these promises about how you're going to show up and you're going to work hard and you're going to be invested in everything that the Jets have going on. Like, you can't say all that and then not do it and then expect for them to give you a contract extension. Like, you straight up lied. That's what Hassan Reddick did. And Jets general manager Joe Douglas came out and said that they're not trading him. He's like, we're going to keep you. And they're just going to keep on finding him. And that's what they should do. Okay? Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh, both of them, are in the process of fighting to keep their jobs. That's what they're doing. And that's what, like, let's be honest, things in New York haven't exactly gone super well over this last decade. Okay, Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh are fighting to keep their jobs. And if you're Joe Douglas, trading a third-round pick for that could potentially be upgraded to a second-round pick if Hassan Reddick plays enough, but trading that pick for a guy who never plays a snap for you doesn't exactly communicate that he's a competent general manager. Okay? Hassan Reddick isn't going anywhere. All right, and if he wants his money and if he wants to get paid and if he wants a big contract, he needs to show up to training camp, do his job, and then discuss with Joe Douglas and these other guys what fair compensation is. Okay, and guess what? Maybe you just say, you know what? We aren't going to reach a deal. I'll play this year here, and then I'll hit the open market, and then I'll go wherever I want. That is a legitimate option for Hassan Reddick. And honestly, if I was him, I think that's the option that I would exercise. Go out there, have a great year, and force somebody to pay you. Seriously. Like, he hasn't done anything for the Jets yet. Why in the world would they pay him? He can't even show up to training camp. Seriously, and I honestly like what the Jets are doing. Okay? The world that we live in, especially when it comes to the NFL, teams and owners have all the power. And the Jets aren't going to budge. Okay? They're going to sit in there and they are going to be like, you know what? We'll just keep finding you. Okay? We hold all of the cards here, and there's nothing that you can do to change our mind on this. Okay? And I wouldn't say it's beautiful, but I am honestly surprised that more teams don't do this. Put your foot in the ground and say, you know what? No, we're not giving you that money until you prove to us that you deserve it. Moving on, I do want to talk about the Colts. Obviously, you got to talk about the Colts. Okay, I'm not talking about visors today, though. I'm not. Instead, I'm going to talk about third string quarterback Sam Ehlinger. Now, preseason stuff, it's interesting to say the least, right? Because, like, you're watching the starters and you want to figure out how they look, but they're only playing, 2 or 3 drives. They might play a whole quarter. Okay, so, like, you don't really get a great read on them. And so most of the time when you watch these preseason games, and I'm excited to have Zach Hicks on of Locked On Colts joining me at 11, to talk about the Colts preseason week 1 and the stuff that we hope to see during Cardinals training camp. So, because you're primarily watching backups during preseason games, it is important to have a good backup quarterback. It really is, just so that you can properly evaluate the other players that you have on your roster. Now, when it comes to Sam Ehlinger, he's the third string quarterback. He's a fine third string quarterback, but he offers the Colts an advantage in the preseason because he's competent. Okay, they don't have to run Anthony Richardson out there to figure out whether or not Adonai Mitchell or, any of these other backup receivers are any good. They don't have to play Joe Flacco. They don't have to play 39-year-old Joe Flacco and risk the idea of him potentially getting hurt. Instead, they can run Sam Ehlinger out there. Okay, and be like, you know what? Like, he's competent. He understands the offense. He's very capable of playing the position. We don't want him to be our starter or anything, but, the Colts don't have to play Joe Flacco or Anthony Richardson to ensure that they get quality reps from the backups competing for, those final roster spots, whether it's receivers or, whoever it is. So Sam Ehlinger, very capable guy who can run the offense, and he can allow the Colts front office and the coaches to get a proper look at the backups. Okay, every team doesn't have that. The Jaguars probably don't trust C.J. Beathard, right? And that's a problem for them. Okay, that's one of the worst backup quarterbacks in the NFL. The Packers probably don't trust Sean Clifford to get a good look at the backups. Okay, the Colts, meanwhile, have a nice luxury of knowing that Sam Ehlinger can play well. Okay, he clearly can, right? To a point where they ran him out there as a starter a couple years ago. That didn't go very well, but it's an advantage that they have. And it's like, Jonathan, why are you talking about backups? Why should we care about the backups? It's all about the starters because that's who decides football games. No, I would say that's not true. Okay, you have to have depth in the NFL because it is it's the most physical sport in the world. I would say, well, the most physical team sport in the world is what I would say. Because, and because the game is that physical, guys get hurt all the time. Okay? Like we got dudes dropping in training camp. All right? Like Sam Williams of the Cowboys tears his ACL. Josh Downs has a high ankle sprain. DeAndre Hopkins is out for, got hurt a few weeks ago and he was out for 6 weeks. Justin Herbert is in a walking boot. Like, things happen, right? This is just training camp. Like, we haven't even started the real season yet. Okay. And once we get into the season and guys are running, at 20 miles an hour, crashing into each other, the injuries are going to pile up. And when that happens, like, you have to have depth, and that back end of your roster becomes extremely important. Because if you don't have good, solid, quality backups, you're not going to win games in, late November and early December. You have to have depth on your roster. It is vital to regular season and postseason success. You have to have depth. And having, on the offensive side of the ball, having a guy like Sam Ehlinger, third string quarterback in the preseason that can come out, run the offense, throw the ball on time and on target, having guys that can actually do that is very helpful in evaluating the back end of your roster. Okay, so, I'm thankful for Sam Ehlinger, something I never thought that I would say. But, that's very much how I feel about it. Once again, loaded show today. Zach Hicks joining me, top of the hour. Cannot wait to have him on. I'm sure we'll talk about the visor thing a little bit. I've got some thoughts on Anthony Richardson. A lot of thoughts on Anthony Richardson. Dan Orlovsky ranked the quarterbacks by trait. I've got a top 10 Tuesday. Probably going to do that top 10 Tuesday at 10:40. Then after that, top of the hour interview with Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. When we come back, though, I have more thoughts on Anthony Richardson and the stuff that we're going to see from him this season. Don't go anywhere. The Real Jonathan Smith Show, Indy Sports Ticket. We'll be back here in 4 minutes.
Welcome back to The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Usually we're live on Twitter, but today we're only on YouTube. You know, I got a little scuffle on Twitter. My blue check mark is now under review. I don't know if that's why, but that makes the story sound way cooler. So we are only live on YouTube today. Head over there, Indy's Sports Ticket. You can watch the live stream there. You can see my beautiful face. You can see my very professional looking hoodie and my very professional looking haircut. Yeah, so all that's going on over there on the YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. Head over there, subscribe, and do all that fun stuff. You can also stream the show live on that Indy Sports Ticket app, but you can, download wherever you get your apps, App Store, Google Play Store, whatever. Now, media personalities are an interesting thing. There are guys that I like. There are guys that I don't like. I'm sure there are guys that you like. Hopefully I'm one of them. And then there are guys that you don't like, or women too. Let me not be sexist on here. And Dan Orlovsky of ESPN is a really interesting one for me. His personality bugs me sometimes. But, man, when he talks about playing the quarterback position, I perk up. This is a guy who is highly educated on how to play quarterback, right? He did it in the NFL for a while. I know he's famous for running out of the back of the end zone. He'll get clowned for that for forever. But, outside of that, like, the dude played in the NFL. When it comes to playing quarterback, he knows what he's talking about. So ESPN had him write an article the other day on basically the top 10 quarterbacks based off of every single trait, right? So he laid out these 6 different quarterback traits: arm strength, ball placement, which is accuracy, mechanics, decision-making, pocket presence, and second reaction ability. So those are the 6 traits. And he ranked every quarterback 1 through 10. He basically gave us the top 10 for every trait. Our guy, Anthony Richardson, ranked 8th in arm strength, which was kind of surprising. I thought he'd be a little bit higher. He can really put some zip on the ball. That is evident when you watch him play. Okay, he can throw it super far down the field. That ball, like, there's no air underneath it when he's zipping it. Okay, and he ranked 3rd in rushing ability, which makes sense. Okay, like all the fantasy people that I know are super excited for him because of his ability to run the ball. Okay, he wasn't mentioned in any of the other categories. Okay, wasn't ranked in top 10 in ball placement. He wasn't ranked top 10 in mechanics. He wasn't ranked top 10 in decision making, and he was not ranked top 10 in pocket presence. And when it comes to arm strength and rushing ability, I would argue that those are the 2 least important categories on the list. Okay, there's your little sneak peek at my top 10 Tuesday coming up at 10:40. Zach Hicks joining me to talk Anthony Richardson and the rest of the Colts at 11 o'clock, top of the hour. But the 2 least important categories on this list are arm strength and rushing ability. Okay, there have been quarterbacks throughout the history of the NFL that have succeeded without the ability to run and have succeeded without the ability to throw the ball 70 yards downfield. Okay, Tua Tagovailoa just got paid a boatload of money. Okay, you know what he doesn't do very well? Run. You know what else he doesn't have? A super strong arm. Okay, like Tua has put together a successful career thus far without the ability to run and without a super strong arm. Peyton Manning, one of the 5 best quarterbacks ever, had a highly successful career, won 2 Super Bowls without the ability to run and without a super strong arm. Brock Purdy has a very average arm. Okay, he's not throwing the ball like Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. He's not doing that. Okay, and he's doing just fine in San Francisco. Tom Brady, best quarterback ever, 7 Super Bowl rings. He's won more Super Bowls than any other quarterback in the history. He's won more Super Bowls than any franchise in the history of the NFL. You know what he couldn't do? Scramble. Okay, and he's the best quarterback in the history of the NFL. Okay, the game isn't played 50 yards down the field. It's played 0 to 20 yards down the field. Okay, you don't have to have a cannon to be great, and there's a plethora of quarterbacks that haven't had the ability to scramble. Okay, and as I was reading through this list, I started thinking about how teams draft quarterbacks versus how the Colts drafted their quarterback. And I equated it to buying a car. Okay, I bought a new car, not a new car. I bought a different car, a different used car, 4 or 5, maybe 6 months ago now. And I just believe that when you buy a car, you shouldn't buy it for the special features. Okay, if you're buying a car because it has leather seats and seat warmers and, maybe it's a truck and it's lifted and, the tires are really cool and, if that's why you're buying a car, I would argue that is not wise. Okay? If you're buying a car because it has screens on the back of the headrest so that your kids can watch movies, then I would argue that you're buying the car for the wrong reasons. When you buy a car, you should buy one that has a good engine. Okay? You should buy a car that has enough seats in it to fit your whole family in it. Okay? If you're, a family that likes to travel and you don't like to fly, you should probably buy a car that has tons of storage so that when you go on vacation, you have a place to put your things. Okay? But you should buy a car with a good engine that meets the needs that you and your family have. Okay? Because if you do that, it should last a long time. And it's the same thing with quarterbacks. And when I look at Anthony Richardson and I look at why the Colts drafted him, kind of feels like they were just looking at the cool features. Like, oh, he can run. That's great. But when I watch quarterbacks win games, they win it from the pocket. Okay, like Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson even, Josh Allen. When they win football games in the last 2 minutes, it's not because they ran for 50 yards. Okay, it's because they sat in the pocket and they delivered the ball on time and on target. Okay, and when we look at Anthony Richardson, man, he comes with a bunch of cool features. Okay, he's a freakishly great athlete, man. He's big. He's blazing fast. He can throw the ball a mile. Okay, but the things that actually matter, as of right now, aren't great. He's not very durable. He's not super accurate, right? When it comes to the durability thing, it's hard to be a franchise quarterback when you spend most of your time on the sideline with your arm in a cast holding a Windows tablet. Okay, his ability to be accurate and throwing the football, not great. Did you watch that game on Sunday? Didn't look good. Did you see him throw the ball his rookie year or his last year at Florida? Dude has cannon, and I will not dispute that. But, man, there are moments where it feels like he can't throw a pea in the ocean, okay, when it comes to accuracy. Those are the things that matter. Okay, those are the traits that allow for quarterbacks to last a long time in the NFL. Pocket presence, accuracy, good decision-making. And so far, because it's early, we haven't seen a ton from Anthony Richardson. He threw 84 passes last year, played, 1 year basically at Florida. We haven't seen him do these important things very well. As of right now, the Colts have bought a car with all the cool features, and they are now frantically working to fix the engine before the race starts. Okay, hopefully they can get it done. And I think that they have one of the best mechanics, if you will, in the game when it comes to Shane Steichen. Okay, once again, we're pivoting to a Shane Steichen take. I will die on this hill. Shane Steichen, when you look at his resume, he has a history of helping develop quarterbacks, of helping to fix the engine, if you will. Okay, he's there. He's in Los Angeles with Justin Herbert, his rookie year. And Justin Herbert had the best year a rookie quarterback had ever had up until that point. Okay, the dude was crazy, throwing the ball all over the field. Okay, running when he needed to, figuring out ways to win games, executing in the final 2 minutes. Okay, Shane Steichen is a great mechanic who helped develop Justin Herbert. And then he leaves the Chargers. He heads over to Philadelphia to work for the Eagles. Nick Sirianni, head coach over there, just gives Shane Steichen the offense. He goes, hey, man, you go, you be great. You help me figure out how to help Jalen Hurts pop. And our guy was just, he was like, all right, I got it. Let me be a great mechanic. Let me help fix some of the areas of concern when it comes to Jalen Hurts. And then the next thing you know, Jalen Hurts has an MVP-like season, throwing the ball on time, on target. I will admit the addition of A.J. Brown helped. It really did, right? And that's a front office thing, right? Helping to tune up the engine just a little bit, right? But like I remember that season from Jalen Hurts and how good he was. He stood in the pocket, delivered the ball on time and on target, didn't run unless he needed to. And because of that, the Eagles looked up and they were in the Super Bowl, right? In large part because of Shane Steichen and his ability to develop Jalen Hurts, to help develop the things that really matter, right? Because Jalen Hurts is a freak athlete as well. Okay, the dude can squat a semi-truck. Okay, the dude runs really fast. He's big, he's strong, he's athletic, he's got a big arm. A lot of similarities there between Richardson and Jalen Hurts, but Jalen Hurts needed some fine-tuning. He needed a mechanic to come in and help fix the engine, to fix the pocket presence, to fix the ability to throw the ball accurately. Okay, that's what he needed, and Shane Steichen was able to show up, put some tweaks on things, and allow for Jalen Hurts to kind of reach the next level of his development. Now he's here. He's in Indianapolis, and he's going to do the same thing with Anthony Richardson. And I do think that we're starting to see some of it. Okay, look, we saw him throw 4 passes on Sunday. It's not a lot. It's not a lot. But he didn't, rush to get out of the pocket. When he had space to step up in the pocket, he did. Were the throws super accurate? No, they weren't. But I felt like for the most part, the decision-making was good. Okay, the throw to Mo Alley Cox was good. He was open. He threw it to the right shoulder so he could turn and get upfield. When it came to throwing the ball to Kylan Granson, the ball was a little bit behind him, but he was open. That's where he should have thrown the football, right? If he leads him a little bit more, though, it's a first down, right? So, there's some fine-tuning things that are happening, and we're seeing the development of Anthony Richardson happen right before our eyes. And we're going to continue to see it. We're going to see tweaks throughout the season. Okay. And that's a good thing. Okay. I would argue, right? The tweaks will hopefully help Anthony Richardson get better. I'm still of the belief that these first 4 weeks of the season are going to be rough. Okay. Because Anthony Richardson is once again a guy that hasn't played a ton of football. Okay, he hasn't. 84 passes last year. Only one season really at Florida where he got to consistently play the game. Okay, so we're going to see a lot of tweaks, and it's just Shane Steichen, the master mechanic, trying to help tweak the engine of Anthony Richardson, the pocket presence, the ball accuracy, or the ball placement, excuse me. Okay, that's all that it is. In these first 4 weeks, the first month of the season, it's going to be a little rocky. But hopefully by week 5, week 6, Shane Steichen has figured out a way for Anthony Richardson to be productive, despite the engine not being perfect quite yet. Zach Hicks joining me top of the hour, 11 o'clock. We're going to talk Anthony Richardson. We're going to talk about the Colts. We're going to talk about how they looked in that preseason game, what we kind of hope to see when they're playing against, the Cardinals this week in joint practices. All that is coming up at 11. Top 10 Tuesday coming your way here next in this segment. I had a, what would I call it here? I had a little viral tweet happen. I'm going to play off of that a little bit. Coming up next segment here in about 4 minutes. Top 10 Tuesday. These are the top 10 most important quarterback traits. I'm coming back with those when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
The best takes, stories, and entertainment. It's The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket. 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in. Usually, we are live streaming live on Twitter, but today, my blue check mark has come under review. Brutal, just brutal. But, it's all good. It's the way it goes. So we are not live streaming on Twitter today. We are live on YouTube, though. If you want to head over there, Indy's Sports Ticket, you can check it out. Join the comments section, chat it up, discuss all of my wonderful opinions and takes. You can talk about visors. That is encouraged. In fact, super interested to see, hopefully, Anthony Richardson take the podium tomorrow. Because if that visor's turned around, yeah, I'm going to be a bit of a menace. Just a bit of a menace if that happens. So, but if you don't want to watch on YouTube, you can also download that Indy Sports Ticket app, on the App Store or the Google Play Store. You can listen to my show there from 10 to noon, or you can also listen to the Dan Dockett Show there from noon to 3, top of the hour, 11 o'clock, about 20 minutes away. Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts is set to join me as he does every Tuesday at 11 o'clock. So for today's Top 10 Tuesday, I talked a little bit about professionalism on Twitter, backwards visor, all that kind of stuff, because I think that speaking well at the podium and presenting yourself in a professional manner matters. Okay? You wouldn't walk into a job interview with a visor on upside down and backwards. Okay? And if you own a business or if you're a manager somewhere and you have to hire people, I just don't think that you would hire someone who walked in with the visor on upside down and backwards. It just doesn't look professional. And when you're 22, 23, 24 years old and you're young and you just don't have a lot on your resume, it becomes even more important to look the part, right? There's the saying, don't dress for the job that you have, dress for the job that you want, and all those things. Well, if Anthony Richardson wants the job of franchise quarterback, he's probably, turn his visor around. Just saying. But, so I was thinking about that and how, I believe that a strong podium presence is an important trait for a quarterback. And then Dan Orlovsky comes out yesterday and he releases these 6, different quarterback traits that are very very much on the field traits. Gritty asking why my blue check mark's under review. Honestly, I think it's because I changed my profile picture, but it's a much better story if I say that it's under review because of what I said about Anthony Richardson. So I'm going to go with that. So when it comes to these quarterback traits, though, Dan Orlovsky gave me 6. And I believe that whatever it is, traits are also important off the field, especially, when you play quarterback and you're dealing with the media and you're dealing with, people like me or Dan or, whoever else. So these are my top 10 quarterback traits, both on the field and off the field, listed from least important to most important. Number 10 on my list here of the top 10 quarterback traits. Number 10 is rushing ability. Okay? There are plenty of unathletic quarterbacks who have found success in the NFL throughout its history. When it comes to the ability to run the football from the quarterback position, I believe that it is a luxury, not a necessity. Okay? Because when you watch quarterbacks, when they're down by 4 with, 2 minutes and 12 seconds remaining, do you know how they're winning that game? It's not going to be through running the football. It's not. It's going to be through their ability to stand in the pocket and throw the ball on time and on targets. Okay? The ability to run, it's nice. It's a nice little luxury. Okay? It's the heated seats in your car, right? Nice to have, but not a total necessity. Okay, so rushing ability comes in at number 10 here on my list. Number 9 is likability. It is important for your teammates to like you if you are a quarterback. It is so incredibly important. Okay, because let's be honest, it's easier to follow a leader, and if you're a quarterback, whether you want to be or not, you are a leader. It is so much easier to follow a guy that you like. Having teammates that like you goes a long way. I think we're going to see that in Pittsburgh this year. Okay, just ask Russell Wilson how important it is to be liked. Russell Wilson's teammates have never liked him. They didn't like him when he was in Seattle. Okay, they didn't like him when he was in Denver. Sean Payton didn't like Russell Wilson when he was in Denver. Okay? Russell Wilson was asked to transfer from NC State, even though he was the starter. They're like, yeah, man, we just don't like you, bro. Hit the transfer portal, right? So he ended up at Wisconsin and played in the Big Ten and all of that fun stuff. Okay, so likability is important, right? And when we look at Pittsburgh, I think it's the perfect example of this. Justin Fields is liked. He was liked in Chicago. That's why people wanted him to stick around. It was pretty evident that his teammates liked him and wanted him to be the starter. Okay, and I think we're going to run into this issue here in Pittsburgh where, everyone likes Justin Fields, and so they want him to be the starter, even though Russell Wilson's probably a better quarterback. Probably, I don't know. Russell Wilson's kind of been on the decline. Okay, so likability is an important trait for your quarterbacks to have because it's just easier to follow someone that you like. And every quarterback, whether they want to be or not, is a leader. Number 8, you could definitely argue for this to be higher, is toughness. This is something that applies to every player in the NFL. You can't survive if you aren't tough. There's no galaxy brain take on this one. Okay, right? Like you have to be tough, especially if you play quarterback, like physically, like you have to be able to take hits, right? You have to, have the toughness to get hit and not rip your offensive line to a point where they don't want to block for you anymore. Okay, toughness is incredibly important, both physically and mentally, which leads me to number 7 on my list, demeanor. You have to have the ability to let things roll off of your back. Okay, it is vital for quarterbacks in the NFL to be able to drop back, throw an interception, and not be fazed by it. It's vital. Okay, it's the relief pitcher thing that you want. Okay, like you have to be able to be calm and cool under pressure. Okay, you have to be like, a reliever who comes in and, the bottom of the 7th and there's guys on 2nd and 3rd and there's only one out, right? You have to have the demeanor that allows you to stay calm and still perform at a high level. Okay, that is incredibly important for quarterbacks in the NFL. You have to allow mistakes to roll off of your back, and you have to stay calm under pressure, and that all comes back to your demeanor. Number 6, arm strength. Quarterbacks can succeed with a weak arm. Okay, if you don't believe me, Tua making $53.1 million a year now, right? That's pretty sick. Guess what? He doesn't have a very good arm. Brock Purdy in San Francisco, the guy who was the quarterback of the 49ers when they ended up playing in the Super Bowl. Okay. Brock Purdy, very average arm. You don't need a great arm to be great in the NFL. The game isn't played 50 yards down the field, 0 to 20. That's where a lot of your throws are going to be. Okay. Peyton Manning, one of the best quarterbacks ever, didn't have a great arm. Okay. It wasn't very good in Denver. It was obviously better when he was younger and here in Indianapolis, but he was never known for being able to throw the ball 75 yards. No, that wasn't happening. Okay, so, those are kind of the first names that come to mind. And if you're accurate, you can make up for a lack of arm strength. Okay, you can. Accuracy is the most important trait a quarterback can have. Spoiler alert, that's going to be number 1 there. Number 5 on the list, as I continue to work through my top 10 quarterback traits. Number 5, second reaction ability. Can you make a play after the original play breaks down? Okay, your first option is covered. Your second option is covered. Now you're kind of scrambling because the 3 seconds that you have to throw the ball are up. Okay, like can you maneuver in the pocket well enough to buy yourself an extra 1.5 seconds to find someone open across the middle? Okay, this is what Mahomes does. This is something that Tom Brady did beautifully throughout his career, right? The ability to manage the pocket. And if, need be, this is where having athletic quarterbacks is nice. Leave the pocket, roll right, roll left, and make a throw on the run. Can you make a play after the original play breaks down, right? And given the, amount of athleticism that we've seen thrown into the quarterback position over these past few years with Josh Allen. Joe Burrow's a good athlete. Patrick Mahomes is a good athlete. Anthony Richardson's a good athlete. Just work your way down the list. Like, this feels like a new thing. I don't think it is a new thing. I just think it looks a little different because of the athleticism at the position now. But this is also a luxury. I think it's a nicer luxury than, having a running quarterback. Like, you don't need it to win. Like we've seen, the Dolphins win a bunch of games these past couple of years with Tua, who's not great after the play breaks down. Okay, but it definitely gives you an advantage, right? It's part of why Patrick Mahomes breaks so many hearts. He just has this innate ability to make a play after the original play breaks down. Number 4, decision making. Got to make good decisions. Okay? Like, you have to make good decisions when you throw the ball. You have to make good decisions when you choose how you respond to questions at a press conference. Okay? A quarterback's arm strength or accuracy, it can bail you out from time to time when we're looking at stuff on the field. But too many bad decisions in terms of where to go with the football usually leads to turnovers, which usually leads to losses. Can't have that. Okay? And the decision-making thing is really weird for me because I think that when we look at quarterbacks and interceptions, we're like, we want our guy to throw 0 interceptions. I would disagree with that. I want for quarterbacks to throw like 8 or 9 interceptions because you still have to have the willingness to push the ball down the field, which comes back to decision-making, knowing when to do that and when, you're up by 2 touchdowns and it's okay to throw the ball 4 yards down the field to your check down guy. Decision-making comes in at number 4 on the list of the top 10 most important quarterback traits. Number 3, podium performance. How do you do when you have to stand up in front of people and answer questions? Dealing with the media makes life easier. Something that great quarterbacks do. Great quarterbacks just make life easier on everyone else. Okay, and if you don't believe me that podium presence is performance, and if you don't believe me that, having someone who can stand at the podium and do things well makes life easier, look at the New York Jets. Just look at Aaron Rodgers throughout his entire career. Aaron Rodgers and his inability to be boring and to, just be normal at the podium leads to a ton of extra unnecessary drama that no one wants to be a part of. Okay, no one wants to be a part of that. Okay, when your left tackle or your running back, your head coach is having to go to the podium and answer questions about what the quarterback said, that is not what you want. It's not what you want at all. Okay? So podium performance is highly, highly important when it comes to traits that quarterbacks have. Number 2, pocket presence. Okay, the best quarterbacks throughout the history of the NFL win games from the pocket. Okay, when there's 2 minutes left in the game and you can't run, can you stand in the pocket and find open dudes when the defense knows that you're throwing the football? Okay, the best quarterbacks in the history of the NFL, that is one thing that they all have in common. Peyton Manning won games from the pocket. Tom Brady won games from the pocket. Patrick Mahomes wins games from the pocket. Josh Allen wins games from the pocket. Okay, it is a copy and paste thing. Every great quarterback has to have that ability, okay, to stand in the pocket when there's, a rush bearing down on you. You got 1 minute and 57 seconds left and you're down by 4. You got to have a dude that can stand in there and deliver the football. The best quarterbacks in the history of the NFL, they win from the pocket. And that is really the biggest thing that I want to see from Anthony Richardson this year. I want to see him stand in the pocket and throw the football all over the field. Okay? Because if you don't have pocket presence and you don't have a willingness to stand in there, then you're just not going to win very many games. Number 1, the most important trait a quarterback can have is ball placement or accuracy. Okay? If you aren't accurate, you're not going to succeed in the NFL. Okay? That's just the cold, hard reality of it. Okay? You have to be accurate. Tua, even though he's not super athletic and doesn't have a big arm, has found success in the NFL because he's arguably the most accurate quarterback in the NFL. Okay? The dude can stand 20 yards away from, a door, from a front door of a house and hit the freaking doorbell. Okay? right? Like that is the most important trait that a quarterback has. And just like pocket presence, the best quarterbacks in the history of the NFL, the quarterbacks that win games, are incredibly accurate. Mahomes, Allen, Brady, Manning. Just keep working your way down, right? And guess what all the bad quarterbacks have in common? They aren't accurate. Okay, Kenny Pickett, who looked awesome his rookie year in Pittsburgh. People very quickly figured out that if he has to throw the ball further than 8 yards down the field, he's not very accurate. And all of a sudden, he's now the backup quarterback in Philadelphia. Okay? You have to be accurate if you're going to win games in the NFL. It's just that simple. Pocket presence, ball placement. Those are the two things we need to see from Anthony Richardson this year. And I really hope that we do. We'll see. We'll see. I've got Zach Hicks joining me here in about, 6.5 minutes. We're going to talk Anthony Richardson. We're going to talk about just the rest of this Colts team. What did we see in preseason week 1? What did we like? What did we not like? Justin Simmons update. You know that we're going to talk about Justin Simmons because he was in Atlanta yesterday meeting with that organization. We'll see. I mean, there's a ton of reports, of him going to Atlanta. And, obviously he was in New Orleans last week. And, we're hearing all the things on Justin Simmons. And he's going to come up because whenever Zach and I talk, like we're always going to wind up talking about this guy until he ends up hopefully in a Colts uniform or in a different team's uniform because Colts need help on the back end. We're going to discuss that. We're going to talk about what we saw from Anthony Richardson, at the game. I'm sure the backwards visor thing will come up, so that'll be fun, right? So can't wait to get into all that with Zach. That's coming up. Thanks again for tuning in. This is the Real Jonathan Smith Show on every day from 10 to noon. If you're looking for the live stream on Twitter, it's not there. Blue check mark is under review, so head over to YouTube, Indie Sports Ticket, hop in the live stream there, subscribe, join the chat, discuss all of the crazy things that I say, because I guess I say crazy things. I don't know. That's just what I've been told. But when we come back here in about 5 minutes, Zach Hicks is going to join me. We're talking Colts preseason week 1 and what we hope to see in these joint practices with the Cardinals. It's the end of summer sale with Zero Res. Get your entire home Zero Resified from Indy's Ultimate Carpet Cleaner and get 3 rooms of carpet clean starting at just $119. And it's the perfect time of year to get your air ducts cleaned with 20% off your air duct cleaning. Cleaning your air ducts helps alleviate allergies and asthma. Less dust, lower energy bills, and your home will stay cleaner longer. Book now with ZeroResIndy.com or call 317-388-5141 and ask for the Indy's Sports Ticket Special.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for...
It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy's Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to tune in. It's 11 o'clock. It's a Tuesday. You know what that means. Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts joins. He also writes about the Colts as well. Zach, what's going on, man?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing pretty good. How you doing?
I'm doing a lot better. For the listeners who missed it, I had a tweet about Anthony Richardson's upside down and backwards visor at a press conference. Didn't go over very well. Got some harsh feedback on that. So you obviously saw the tweet. So let me ask you, like, what were your thoughts when you read it? What was your opinion on the upside down and backwards visor?
I thought you were kidding at first, man. I thought you were either kidding or I thought it was it might have been like hyperbole or something. Because I saw your follow-up thing where you said, you remembered like the Johnny Manziels and the stuff, and I get it from that perspective. The brain always goes to the Manziels and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But when you said that you wanted to talk about this for a second, I swear I wasn't looking this up just to mess with you or anything like that. But I was like, I'm just curious. I feel like dudes have wore backwards hats and stuff like that, and I looked up like other quarterbacks and I got like a picture of Lamar Jackson with backwards hats in a press conference on top of like a beanie as well and stuff. I got Tom Brady doing it. I got Brock Purdy doing it. I was like, okay, I don't agree with you, but look, I know it's Twitter.
It is.
And sometimes with hyperbole, we get called out for it. I mean, I jokingly said the other day when Josh Downs got hurt, I was like, the Colts are going to be an 80% run team this year.
Oh,
and I had multiple comments where people were like, that hasn't happened since the 80s. I'm like, I know, it was hyperbole. Like, I was just kidding, guys. Like, it's fine. So.
My whole thing is just like, I feel like if you're, like, here's my thing. You're what, like 25?
27.
27. Okay. So when you were like 23 years old, coming out of college, if you walked into a job interview with very little on your resume and you wore a backwards hat, I don't think that you would get the job, And I feel like, like Brady and Mahomes, like they can do whatever they want because, Brady's won 7 Super Bowls and Patrick Mahomes has won 3 out of the last 4. I just feel like until you're like proven, like you should do everything you can to put your best foot forward. And that's kind of more of where I was coming from. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I get what you're saying. I just think I'm the worst audience for this because, look, man, I'm a sports writer because I never wanted to work in an office job. Like, I was growing up and going to, even when I first went to college and stuff, I was like, I'm going to do anything I can to be in the sports world where I don't have to wear a suit.
Same.
And I don't have to do anything formal. So I could just sit at home on my computer, or I can go to training camp in shorts and stuff. Like, I'd rather do that. So I might be the worst person to talk to about it.
Well, that's how I am too. Like I got on the live stream yesterday. It's the most people I've ever had tune into a show. I had over 1,000 people watching on Twitter. It was wild.
Oh man.
And they're like, "You're in a black t-shirt. Why don't you look more professional?" And I'm like, "Cause I'm in radio. And if you look at all the comments, I'm a nobody apparently." So, it was honestly a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. And I do want to know, once again, joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. Do you have any weird things like that? Like when you hear a quarterback or a coach say something specific, you're like, I don't like that. Like, is there anything that kind of like a weird, I guess, kind of pet peeve that you have kind of in that backwards hat kind of aisle?
Oh man, I think anything Jeff Saturday said a couple of years ago, just any word out of his mouth. I was just so tired of everything that year. But I don't know. I think my dad and I were actually talking about this the other day because we were talking about some of the pushback that Caleb Williams got in the pre-draft process from people with the painting his nails and wearing a dress and stuff. I'm like, look, as long as the guys get along with him and the guys in the locker room are cool with him and he's not being an absolute deep, do whatever you want.
As long as he's not Russell Wilson.
yeah. Okay. That might be one too, but I'm fine with any of that kind of stuff. It's whatever. Express yourself. I'm glad people are feeling comfortable to express themselves. But the only time I think it really annoyed me a little bit was with the Shadur Sanders stuff not too long ago on Twitter, where he was calling out an ex-teammate very vocally on Twitter and stuff, and how the guy wasn't good enough. He was some bum and how he didn't even know his name and stuff. So why are you talking about our team? That I think pushes the line a little bit where it's like, look, you're the quarterback. Sometimes things are better left unsaid. So maybe something like that gets on me a little bit. But for the most part, dude's wearing anything. Dude's talking a certain way. Like, there's some stuff I certainly disagree with. Like, I wouldn't be covering the Cleveland Browns, for instance, with their quarterback. But, like,
Yeah.
There's some things I wouldn't do, or I wouldn't, like, cover. But, like, for the most part, like, do your thing and just be good on the football field, I think, is the big one for sure.
Without a doubt. Now, we saw Anthony Richardson take 7 snaps on Sunday. Once again, joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. You can follow him on Twitter at Zach Hicks and then the number 2. 7 plays from Anthony Richardson. Not great from my vantage point. How do you think Richardson looked in his first game in 308 days?
Yeah, I think it was good just for him to get his legs out there, get some of the rust off, get some of the nerves out of the way. I know he talked a little bit in that post-game presser about kind of the nerves going into it and stuff, and just kind of shaking those off. You could even see on his first throw, free blitzer right in his face, kind of hurries his feet a little bit, throws it a little low. And you're like, okay, cool. Like, get those nerves out now because it's the preseason. It doesn't really matter that much. Then his other throw to Kylan Granson gets a little caught up in the mesh in the middle there and slows up his route. Richardson still throws a high ball. Like, it wasn't a great ball. But just guys being off timing. Good throw to Molly Cox after that. And then his final throw, just a tick late on the timing, which would have been a first down if he was right on time. But, still got a completion, just didn't get the first down. Overall, I think people are kind of going a little too far with the analysis of this. Like, it's a preseason game and he threw 4 passes in this one. It's really not something we can 100% say like, oh my gosh, he's going to struggle this year because 3 of his 4 passes weren't perfect. But, just get the rust off, see how he does in the joint practice this week, and we can make these grandiose statements after that. But overall, it was just good to see him on the football field, good to see him out there. He didn't take any hits, but he took a little bit of contact. He ran for 1 yard and got pushed out of bounds. That blitz in his face, he got to see a guy, guys rearing down on him again. So just him getting used to the feel on the football field again, I think was the biggest win here in this game.
Yeah, that's really how I feel about it. Like, look, like I kind of figured it'd be rough. Like, look, you don't do anything for 300 days. I don't care how great you are. Like, you're going to struggle. Like, there's going to be some rough spots, but like you said, like, it was good just seeing him get on the field. I thought the offensive line looked good. Like, my favorite thing that I saw was 3rd and 8 on that first possession. Like 3rd and you got to throw it, and he takes the snap. The pocket forms. It's beautiful. And instead of just like staying in one spot or looking to get outside the pocket, we saw him step up. The throw, not great, but like I liked seeing him really look to throw the ball.
Yeah. No, again, the couple things we saw, I think there was some positive, some negative. Like, again, last year with that Kylan Granson one on the other 3rd down, so not the one you just mentioned, but the other 3rd down where he was a tick late to Granson, and Granson wasn't able to get to the first on that. I don't hate the process because last year he was moving off of those downfield throws a little too quick and getting to the short passes too early. And this one, we saw him go too late getting back down to the short pass, and that's what caused the non-conversion. But like, preseason's the time to try this stuff out. Like, if you want to sit on the deeper routes a little bit longer in the preseason, just so you can see them develop down the field and get your feel for the pocket with these offensive linemen in front of you, like, by all means, go do your thing. That's what this is for. And, he's going to throw 60, 70 passes this week in joint practice against another team. That's what these joint practices are for. So I'm fine with trying things out in the preseason. As long as it gets cleaned up by the regular season, it's fine. And so, it wasn't like Matt Ryan preseason awful. So I'm fine with it,
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. I think looking at the defensive side of the ball, my biggest takeaway was if the defensive line can't generate a pass rush, the Colts are going to give up a lot of points this year. Was that kind of your takeaway?
I definitely think that if Dallas Flowers is going to perform like that every single week, and look, I'm not trying to be too harsh on the guy. I know if you look at my Twitter, it seems like I'm being really, really harsh on the guy the last couple of days, but obviously it's my job to talk about the team, and he was one of the bigger things. But it's a guy coming back from an Achilles injury. He's still not 100%. I know the team has said he's around 90-ish%. You can see the lack of trust in his driving downfield or downhill. And we saw the Broncos really go after him quite a bit in this game. 2 pass interference calls on him, along with giving up quite a few catches. It just wasn't a great showing. So when he's out there starting with, all these other guys out there, and Juju Brents is out, you can really see the weakness in this team being that secondary and being him as that starter. So hopefully he can bounce back. I'm not trying to harp too much on him now with all that, but when he was out there, like the pass coverage didn't look great. I do think there were some positives on the defense, even without DeForest Buckner in there. I think the edge rush looked great. I thought Zaire Franklin looked really, really, really good out there. Kenny Moore, obviously, is always a star. And Nick Cross, I think, had a solid game overall. I know he played kind of like a long time in there, but I thought he looked all right out there. So overall, I wasn't too concerned with the defense. I would like to see Juju Brents out there so I could see what it looks like with all the starters on the field. But, when it comes to the Colts, all the starters aren't going to play all the time. So that might be wishing a little bit too much out there.
Well, that's for every team, right? Like every team has to deal with injuries in some way, shape, or form. Once again, joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. I thought Jalen Jones looked much better than Dallas Flowers. Like you said, though, Dallas Flowers still coming back from injury. I thought Nick Cross was surprisingly good. Like I was really nervous about it. I ripped assistant Colts GM, I'm blanking on his name right now, Dodds, about how he wanted to see more. And I was like, we've had 2 years of tape. But man, like the one touchdown that Cross gave up, I didn't think it was his fault. I thought he tried to get the corner to take the guy in motion, and that didn't happen. But that's a communication thing that I'm assuming gets ironed out throughout the rest of the preseason. So outside of Dallas Flowers, I thought that they were all right. But, I'd still like it if they went and got Justin Simmons or someone like that.
Yeah, it would certainly make you feel better, but I do think it was a good showing from Cross. It's certainly not a showing where we're all being like, okay, never mind. All the stuff we complained about safety all off season, we're good with. It wasn't like he had that great of a game, but had a nice little pass breakup over the middle of the field, had a couple good run stops, and even on that goal line play, like with the poor communication and whatever the issue was, he still was a half tick off from making a play on that ball. So I think Nick Cross had a solid game. I like that they gave him reps throughout the entire first half. Like I think he played all the way up till halftime. And even Ronnie Harrison, when he got out there, I thought did some good things too. So yeah, I'm still concerned about safety. Like I'm not going to say after preseason game 1 that all my issues with safety are cleared up, but it was good to see those two guys and especially Cross have a pretty solid showing.
Yeah, I completely agree. And speaking of good showings, Tyquan Lewis and Leatu Latu, man.
Yeah.
I felt like Lewis was in the backfield every time he was on the field. Latu was seeing double teams already. How'd you think that those guys looked?
Oh man, I mean it was so good to see, especially because I don't think anybody, especially anyone listening to the show or anyone who's a Colts fan, was terribly concerned about those two guys. Like we are all very optimistic about both of them, but when you lose a player like Samson Ebukam, it's like, okay, these are the two guys who go from being rotational guys that now need to step up and be starters, like part-time starters, at least for both of them. So we need to start seeing more and more from them so we can feel confident because they have to replace the best pass rusher on the team, the best edge rusher on the team and Ebukam. And, it was only one preseason game, but these guys were outstanding. I mean, I think they combined for a total of only 12 rushes on the passer in this one, and Lewis had 2 QB hits. He had 1 QB hit and then drew a holding call on Garrett Bowles. And then Leatu Latu had like 2 of his 5 rushes were pass rush wins according to Pro Football Focus, 2 pressures in there. One was on the interception where he, hurried up the throw a little bit. So yeah, those 2 guys, man, and they were going against the starter for the Broncos in all 12 of their rushes in Garrett Bowles. And they were making his life hell out there. So yeah, really, really good showing from both of them. I thought Lewis looked really strong and powerful and was really giving Bowles some fits. And then Leatu Latu, he just moves at this different pace that we haven't seen from a Colts pass rusher in so long. When you look at like guys like Lewis and Tay and Odangbo and even Ebukam to a degree, they're all so explosive and powerful. And they all start off by, we're going to win with power and then use our speed afterwards. Where Latu, everything seems so methodical. Where like every rush isn't the same. He's going to use his hands. He's going to use swipes. He's going to use stabs. He's going to use clubs. He's going to swim inside. Like, it's so many different things and different ways to attack guys. And it's so interesting to see that dynamic where, like, if you look on the other side of the field, Pay's kind of doing the same thing every time. And it's not a bad thing. Like, he's getting back there. But with Latu, it's just so more paced out and methodical. It's really fun to see.
It really is. Look, I'll be honest. Whenever I watch games, I'm mostly watching the quarterback and figuring out where the ball's going. But nah, man, when Latu was on the field, I was like, what is this? What is this about to look like? Because we've heard just so many good things coming out of camps. And, you're talking about how Latu was going up against the Broncos starting offensive line. Like, they're supposed to have one of the better offensive lines in football this year. So I thought that what we saw from, the edge rushers were great. What we saw from the backup defensive tackles, though, not great. If you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think in terms of pass rush, we saw some good things with the backup defensive tackles. I mean, Adetomi Adebore, he was fantastic as a pass rusher in this game. So I want to give some positives here. Absolutely fantastic as a pass rusher. I thought he looked the best he's ever looked in NFL action. So that's a positive. But in run defense, man, yeah, these backup defensive tackles, just so much to be desired. I mean, Taven Bryan was out there running with the ones, and then he got some run with the twos, and we just know how he is in run defense. Adetomi, for how great he was as a pass rusher, he still doesn't really have that bulk to withstand double teams, and I think the Broncos knew that, so they were driving him off the ball with them. And then, I mean, Jonah Lowalu is a project. Eric Johnson is just not going to happen at this point in his career. So, yeah, we need Raekwon Davis back, man. And DeForest Buckner is never allowed to miss a game ever again. And then we'll be good.
Yeah, so full disclosure, I know my audience for the most part knows this. I don't think you do. I am not a Colts fan. I'm a Dolphins fan, have been that way my entire life. When I saw Raekwon Davis come over from Miami, I was like, if he's a backup, that's a really good pickup because he can defend the run. He's a big guy, not a great pass rusher, but I don't think that's why they brought him over, especially when you've got all these edge rushers that get after the quarterback just fine. So, hopefully he comes back soon. I know he's had some issues with diabetes, I think, something along those lines. So hopefully he's back soon. But I also want to get into who I thought was awesome with, in terms of the backups. Micah Abraham.
Oh, yeah.
He's great. I love him. What were kind of your thoughts on him?
What a play, man. Like, what a play. That forced fumble return for a touchdown. That is, I've been harping on this the last couple of days, but that is how you make a team right there. Like, this isn't like the Darius Rush preseason touchdown last year where they threw a screen to his side, the dude bobbled it up in the air, Rush grabbed it and ran for a touchdown. Like, that's one thing, and I'm not trying to, speak ill on Rush or anything like that, but that's one thing. The ball falls in your hands and you just let your athleticism do the work. But this was a guy making a play. This was Micah Abraham ripping that ball out, getting that ball in his hands, turning up field and scoring a touchdown. That's how you make a team right there, man. Like, that is what they're asking from you. Like, and for the Colts, you drafted this guy who is a massive outlier in terms of size, in terms of arm length, in terms of athleticism. Like, he is anti Chris Ballard and everything when it comes to measurables and all that. But Ballard said after the draft, he said, look, we like this kid's playmaking, and that usually translates to the NFL. And we saw it from his, that was like one of his first couple snaps out there. He rips the ball out and scores a touchdown. It's like, okay, if you're going to bring that to the team, like, you deserve to make the roster because playmakers, man, you need playmakers in the NFL. So that was just an outstanding showing from him. He had a nice tackle in the open field as well on Zach Wilson for a couple-yard loss. I thought if you're looking at the biggest winners from this past game, I think Micah Abraham really sticks out. Like, that's just how you make a football team right there.
It really is. I completely agree with you on that. Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. I do want to talk about the quarterbacks really quickly before I let you go. I like Sam Ehlinger, really good preseason quarterback. I think he gives the Colts a bit of an advantage of, he can play the position and you can properly evaluate some of the backups. I didn't know who Jason Bean was. And every time during the game, I'm checking Twitter and you're just super jacked up about this Jason Bean guy. So, what'd you think of Ehlinger? What'd you think of Slavis? And give me your thoughts on Jason Bean too.
Oh, man, I love Jason Bean. I'm a huge fan of Kansas football in college, and not like I'm wearing their merch or anything. Like, I'm saying I'm a fan of like what they do offensively. I just love their scheme so much. It's a really fun team, and they just have this very innovative offensive style. And when you're watching them in college, man, like these last couple of years, like Jason Bean wasn't their full-time starter. Like he had spurts where he was, but you would see these random plays where he's turned the corner and running like this like 4-2 athlete out there, and it's like, oh my gosh, like this is insane at quarterback. And then he could throw the ball a little bit. I know he threw for like almost 500 yards in his final college game. So I was excited when the Colts brought him in. Like, I'm not saying he's going to beat out Ehlinger. Like, he's not. So he's probably a practice squad guy at best, but he's a fun player, man. I'm such a Jason Bean fan because he's fun. And it was great seeing him out there and seeing him do some things. The touchdown pass was just a dot over the middle of the field. Really nice throw. Had a couple other good things. You know, the fumble never happened. I mean, in my mind, we're blocking that out, blocking out the negatives, and we're only accepting the positive plays. I saw that somebody posted highest passer ratings from rookie quarterbacks in preseason week 1, and they didn't put Jason Bean on there. He was the second highest. You know, he had 132 passer rating.
It's Twitter, man.
So yeah, like it's disrespectful. They put Joe Milton over him. Like, come on, Jason Bean. You know, he's in there. But yeah, Jason Bean, really good showing. Slovis, I thought he had a really good showing as well. I wish he would have hit that touchdown in the back of the end zone at Treadwell, and he would have been even better showing.
Yeah.
But you know, good showing from him. And then Ehlinger, he's really grown on me over the years. He was a guy who I was way out on his first 2 years in the NFL, being like, why are we wasting a roster spot on this guy? It just doesn't make sense. But I think his arm has gotten better the last couple of years. I think he's developed really well as a passer. And I'm not saying he's a starter in the NFL. I'm not even saying he's like a high level backup, but I think he's kind of like a Colt McCoy type, you know, can move around a little bit, can get the ball out of his hands, pretty accurate in the short game. Like, I think he's got that poise. And I think, you know, when he eventually does leave the Colts, because I don't think he's going to stay past his rookie contract here with the Colts, I think he can be a backup for another team. Like, I think he's earned that. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of Sam Ehlinger at this point. He's really grown on me over the years, and I've really enjoyed watching him in the preseason these last couple seasons.
Yeah, I'm with you. Do you think we see Anthony Richardson? I think their next preseason game's on Saturday against the Cardinals. I know they're doing the joint practice stuff all week. I'd like to see him for a couple possessions just because it's different when you're not in the red "Don't touch me" jersey, you know? So I know I'd like to see him in the next preseason game. Do you want to see him, and do you think we will?
Yeah, so I'm not going to say this with 100% certainty because Shane Steichen likes to keep everything close to his vest, but I'll say it with like 99% certainty because I know how he works, how he operates. I don't think we're going to see many starters in this next game because they're going to have those 2 long practices against the Arizona Cardinals. And by Steichen's logic, it'll be, look, these guys are going to get 50, 60 reps against another team here throughout the week. We're going to simulate everything we need to simulate in these joint practices, and we're going to get the depth guys more run in the game. So I do think we might see like a Nick Cross out there, like a couple of those kind of starters out there. But for the most part, I don't think we'll see any starters. I think we'll see Richardson in the starters though in preseason game 3, probably for like a quarter and a half. So they'll get a little bit more of a run in that final game, I think, which will kind of, you know, appease people wanting to see them this weekend. Like, I think it's going to be kind of the dress rehearsal in that third game, which I think is the following Friday, coming up after that. So I don't expect them at all this weekend, but the next weekend when they travel to Cincinnati, I think we're going to see a good bit of them out there.
That's pretty much how I feel about it. Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. Last question, and I'll let you go. Tyreek Hill, he have any chance of beating Noah Lyles in a 100-meter dash? I don't know if you saw this.
I mean, COVID Noah Lyles, maybe. I mean, Noah Lyles, man. I mean, look, I know that he's probably going to be number 1 right now with Americans for whatever reason. But that guy can fly, man. He's one heck of an athlete out there. I know he didn't end his Olympics on a great note because he had COVID, but fantastic athlete, and that would be a great race.
And the fastest man in the world. He won the 100-meter.
Yeah, like, I will never count Tyreek Hill out because I see what he does on a football field and how much faster he looks than some of the greatest athletes I've ever seen. So I'm not counting Tyreek Hill out, but my money would probably go on Noah Lyles.
Oh yeah.
That's the fastest man in the world right there, like you said.
Yeah.
But it would be a fun race. I mean, look, Hill's different, so I can't really count him out, but he probably doesn't win that race.
Do you want to hear my wired galaxy brain Colts take?
Okay, what is it?
Anthony Gould is the next Tyreek Hill.
Oh, dude,
like
I'll take it.
when you look at it, Chris Ballard, was in Kansas City when they drafted Tyreek Hill. They took him in the 5th round with the intention of him being, a special teams guy, returning punts and kicks. Just same reason why they took Anthony Gould. Small school guy, Oregon State, not, the biggest school out there. And then, he shows up. Kansas City has some issues in the wide receiver room. And Tyreek Hill's like, I can play receiver. And then the next thing you know, the Chiefs were like, we have the best receiver in the league. So, we'll see.
Look, man, I will give my left arm if he becomes Tyreek Hill. Like,
Dude.
like we might be talking like deep playoff run this year if Anthony Gould is even somewhat encroaching what Tyreek Hill is as a player. So I will sacrifice every other receiver in that room for Anthony Gould to become Tyreek Hill. So I'm all for it.
I'd be over the moon. I'd be so pumped. I would wear that take like a crown. It would never come off.
Oh yeah, dude. Save the recording just in case. Yeah, for sure.
That's exactly right. Dude, you were awesome as always. Are you writing anything this week? You have anything coming out?
Probably a lot of film stuff on the preseason games. I know. Look, guys, if you want to see some all 22 film of preseason football, that's I'm your guy for,
Sounds good.
for that stuff. But yeah, it's film time. We got to break down some of these dudes who stood out. And I'm telling you, hey, next one's going to be on Adetomi. I'm telling you guys, Adetomi had a great game rushing the passer. I'm not clipping too much of the run game, but like the pass rush, I'm certainly going to be clipping some of that stuff for an article. So check that one out.
Cool. Sweet, man. Will do. Thanks for your time, dude.
Yep. See you, buddy.
See ya. That is Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. He also writes and covers the Colts as well. You can follow him on Twitter at Zach Hicks, followed by the number 2, and you can get all of his stuff there. We're way over on time. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, Anthony Richardson. I've got some concerns. Dan Orlovsky released some quarterback trade stuff. I don't know. I've got more questions on Anthony Richardson. I'll tell you those when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Unadulterated sports talk with unfiltered takes. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hope you guys are having a great day. It's Tuesday. Let's go. Juiced up. Great week so far. Dan Orlovsky of ESPN is an interesting character. It's not everyone's cup of tea. He's not always my cup of tea. But when Dan Orlovsky says things about playing the quarterback position in the NFL, I tend to perk up a bit because, it's a guy who played quarterback in the NFL. If anyone's going to know, it's going to be him. He clearly watches the games. And so whenever he says anything about playing the quarterback spot, I'm going to listen. And ESPN had him write this article where he listed out the 6 different traits that a quarterback has, and he ranked the top 10 quarterbacks according to each trait. The categories: arm strength, ball placement, mechanics, decision-making, pocket presence, and second reaction ability. Anthony Richardson popped up in not one, but 2 of the categories. Ooh, big deal there. The 2 categories he popped up in were arm strength, in which he ranked 8th. Felt a little bit low. Say what you want about the kid, but he can sling it. Okay, and he was ranked 3rd in rushing ability, right? Which I think we all know. Talk to any fantasy football nerd. They are pumped up about the upside of Anthony Richardson's ability to run the ball. Okay, he wasn't mentioned in any of the other categories that are way more important than arm strength and the ability to run. Okay, I would actually argue that the 2 least important categories on that list are arm strength and rushing ability. Okay, like there are quarterbacks in the NFL now and, and throughout the history of the NFL that have had success without either. Okay, Tua Tagovailoa. He's put together a pretty good career so far without the ability, to run or without having, a big arm. Okay, Peyton Manning, he had a successful career even though he didn't have the world's strongest arm and even though he couldn't, run a whole bunch. Brock Purdy has an average arm, okay? And he's been wildly successful in San Francisco, appeared in the Super Bowl last year, okay? He's going to get paid a lot of money. Tom Brady couldn't scramble, and he's still the best quarterback in the history of the NFL. Okay, so arm strength, the ability to run, I think that they're overrated, and those are kind of the 2 things that Anthony Richardson is great at. Okay, it's like, well, Jonathan, arm strength's important. Yeah, I mean, I guess. Like the game isn't played 50 yards down the field. It's played 0 to 20 yards down the field. Okay, you don't have to be able to throw the ball 75 yards in the air, to be a great quarterback. Okay, and there's, a plethora of quarterbacks that haven't had the ability to scramble when it comes to the ability to run the ball. And as I was sitting back and as I read through the article, I was just thinking about how teams draft quarterbacks and what they prioritize. And I equated it to buying a car. When you buy a car, I believe that you should buy one that has a good engine. Okay, I had to buy, a new car, in March. Okay, we had that bad snow, totaled my truck. It was rough, but that's just kind of the way that the cookie crumbles sometimes. So we had to go out. We bought a new car. Okay, and when we were looking, me and my wife, what we wanted? We wanted something with a good engine. We wanted something that was going to last us for a long time because cars are expensive. When you buy a car, you shouldn't buy it for the special features. I would say that that's not a wise investment. If you're buying a car because it has leather seats and screens for your kids to watch movies on, you're buying it for the wrong reasons. Okay, when you go car shopping and you decide, which car you want to buy, you should probably buy the one that has a good engine. You should probably buy the one that, has enough trunk space for you to load all the luggage in it when you go on family vacation with your family. You should probably buy the one that you can fit all your kids in comfortably. Okay? So it's really that simple. When you buy a car, you should buy it for the things that are going to make it last. It's the same thing with quarterbacks. When I sit back and I look at Anthony Richardson, and I look at why the Colts drafted him. The Colts drafted the quarterback, Anthony Richardson, that came with a bunch of cool features. He's big, he can throw the ball a mile, he can run really fast. But the things that actually matter and lead to long careers in the NFL, he's not great at yet. He's not. Okay? He gets hurt a lot. It's hard to be a franchise quarterback when you're spending most of your time on the sideline in a cast holding the Windows tablet that every team has. Okay? It's hard to be a franchise quarterback when you don't accurately throw the football. Okay? Like, did you watch him throw in that first preseason game? It didn't look good. Didn't look good. Did you see him throw the ball his rookie year or his last year at Florida? Didn't look very good. The dude has a cannon, but he can't throw a pea in the ocean sometimes. Okay, he is inaccurate. He doesn't stay healthy. He leaves the pocket early. But hey, he can run and he can throw the ball really far. That's great. The things that matter aren't the things that Anthony Richardson's very good at. The traits that allow a quarterback to last a long time in the NFL, Anthony Richardson doesn't do those very well. The Colts bought a car or drafted a quarterback with all the cool features. And now they're working frantically to fix the engine before the race starts. Okay, and hopefully they can get it done. I think they have a pretty decent chance at getting it done because Shane Steichen is a master mechanic. Okay, you aren't going to find many other head coaches in the NFL that excel at developing highly athletic and highly talented quarterbacks. Okay, when we look at Shane Steichen's resume, when he was in Los Angeles, coaching for the Chargers, he was a major part of that awesome rookie year that Justin Herbert had, right? That record-setting rookie year that Justin Herbert had. Okay, he was able to put Justin Herbert in spots consistently where he could succeed and where he could use his big arm and his legs and all those things, right? He helped develop and bring Justin Herbert along. Okay, it's important. Okay, it's nice having a coach in Shane Steichen who has the ability to tweak the engine, so to speak, so that the performance is better, right? So we see him do it, in Los Angeles for the Chargers, and then he gets a call from Nick Sirianni. He's like, hey, man, I want you to be my new offensive coordinator. And Shane Steichen was like, all right, cool. Sounds great. So he, moves to Philly, shows up, and Nick Sirianni's like, we're going to play Jalen Hurts. Here you go. Here's this big, athletic, fast, strong, big-armed quarterback that, I think everyone had questions about until Shane Steichen showed up and he was able to tweak the engine. Jalen Hurts went from a guy who was, athletic and was able to make some plays because of his athleticism to a guy who stood in the pocket, threw the ball on time and on target. And part of that was that they went out and they acquired A.J. Brown, which makes every quarterback's life easier when you bring in a receiver of that talent level. But you still have to have the ability to stand in the pocket and throw the ball on time and on target, especially if you're going to be an MVP finalist like Jalen Hurts was, especially if you're going to win the NFC and appear in the Super Bowl like the Eagles did that year. Okay, Shane Steichen is a master mechanic. Okay, and while there are a lot of questions about Anthony Richardson and whether or not he's going to figure out the things that will allow him to last as a franchise quarterback in the NFL, there should be no question about whether or not Shane Steichen has the ability to develop those traits in Anthony Richardson. Okay, because we saw him do it in Los Angeles with Justin Herbert. We saw him do it in Philadelphia with the Eagles and Jalen Hurts. We saw him do it last year with Gardner Minshew. Okay, Gardner Minshew left, went to the Raiders, and now he looks terrible. Meanwhile, he almost won the division last year with Shane Steichen as his head coach. Okay, this guy can coach, and if there's anyone who's going to help develop Anthony Richardson to a point where he can be a legitimate franchise quarterback, it's Shane Steichen. Okay, and that's a hill I'm very much willing to die on. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, Top 10 Tuesday, playing a little bit off of Dan Orlovsky's article. Okay, these are the top 10 quarterback traits listed in order from least important to most important. I've got those coming your way here in about 4 minutes.
More winners, more often. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy's Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Tickets returns. Follow me on Twitter at __ Jonathan Smith. Feel free to tweet at me during the show. Usually we're live streaming on there, but my blue check mark is under review. Don't know why. But, hey, it's whatever. Shout out to Finn's One Up One for tweeting at me during the show. I always appreciate that. Or if you want to get at me a little bit more directly, head over to YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, subscribe, join the live stream. You can drop the thoughts in the comment section there as well. Top 10 Tuesday, baby. It's Tuesday. Let's go. So, based off of what I said about, Anthony Richardson and the backwards and upside down visor, and Dan Orlovsky wrote this little quarterback trait, article thing. And based on all that, I decided to kind of combine these two lists, right? Because we see quarterback traits both on and off the field. I would argue that leadership is something that applies not only on the field, but also off the field, in the locker room, and those sorts of things. So I have created my top 10 Tuesday based off of quarterback traits, ranking the least important ones to the most important ones. Number 10, rushing ability. There are plenty of unathletic quarterbacks who have found success in the NFL without the ability to run the ball. Okay, look, if you can, run the ball well as a quarterback, that's great. But let's be honest, it's a luxury. Okay, you don't have to be great at running the ball in order to be a great quarterback in the NFL. And when we look at the history of the NFL, that is what you see. Is it nice to have? No doubt. But it's not a necessity. Number 9, likability. Having teammates that like you goes a long way. Just ask Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's teammates didn't like him. Okay, and it made everyone else's job harder. That's why Russell Wilson isn't in Seattle anymore. Over time, he wore that organization down, and they're like, you know what? We'll get rid of you. And then he shows up in Denver, and they're like, geez, this guy's kind of a problem. Sean Payton didn't like him. So now he's playing in Pittsburgh. Okay, when he was in college, NC State asked him to leave. They're like, can you please transfer? We don't want you here anymore. Right, so he winds up at Wisconsin and wins a bunch of games in the Big Ten. Likability, it's important. Justin Fields, very likable in Chicago. That's why they didn't want him to leave. Okay, likability is important, but it's not the most important thing, right? Like Russell Wilson did win a Super Bowl. It just makes everyone else's life easier if the guys in your locker room like your quarterback. Number 8, toughness. Okay, look, this is something that applies to every NFL player. Okay, I'm not breaking the internet with this take, but look, you can't survive in the NFL if you aren't physically and mentally tough. Okay, like if you're a quarterback, like you have to be able to, get back up after you get knocked on your butt. It's the only position in the NFL where you don't have a head full of steam running into somebody. You are a stationary target. Okay, so when you get hit, you take the full brunt of it. So you have to have the toughness to bounce back, get up, control your emotions, not yell at your offensive line. Okay, because, if you upset them, things can get really bad for you. You know what I mean? So that's number 8, toughness. Number 7, demeanor. You have to have the ability to let things roll off of your back. You have to be able to play quarterback in the NFL, to throw an interception and not let it bother you. Kind of like the relief pitcher who comes in the bottom of the 7th with guys on 2nd and 3rd. You have to have this calm demeanor that still allows you to perform well, even when things aren't going perfectly. Number 6, arm strength. Quarterbacks can succeed with a weak arm. We've seen it happen. Tua, Brock Purdy, Peyton Manning. First names that come to mind. If you're accurate, then you can make up for a lack of arm strength because the game isn't played 50 yards down the field. It's played, 0 to 20. Okay, like most of the time when these guys are throwing the ball, they're throwing the ball 10 yards down the field, not 45, 50, 60. Okay, so arm strength, nice to have, but you don't need it to be successful in the NFL. Number 5, second reaction ability. Can you make a play after it breaks down? Given the influx of athleticism that we've seen at the quarterback position over these past few years, this feels like a new thing. It's not. It just looks a little bit different. Now, instead of guys stepping up in the pocket or, figuring out how to move behind the protection, Tom Brady was a master at it. Instead of seeing guys do that, we see them run outside the pocket and do something crazy, right? It's cool. It's fun to watch. I like seeing it. We see Patrick Mahomes and these dudes do it all the time. This is something that gives you a major advantage. But we've seen quarterbacks, the Lions made it to, the NFC Championship game last year. Brock Purdy appeared in the Super Bowl. Tua won a whole bunch of games. Like, we've seen quarterbacks win games without that ability. But boy, makes your life a lot easier as a play caller. Number 4, decision making. You got to make good decisions with when and where you throw the football. Right? You have to understand time, score, situation, all those important things. Now, a quarterback's accuracy or arm strength could bail them out from time to time if they make a bad decision. But look, too many bad decisions usually leads to turnovers and losses, which isn't what you want. You have to have guys that make good decisions in terms of throwing the ball and in terms of what they say at the podium, which is number 3 on my list. Podium performance. Dealing with the media makes life easier, okay? And that is something that the best quarterbacks do. They make life easier, okay? Go ask anyone that plays for the Jets about Aaron Rodgers' inability to be boring and not make a mess of things at the podium. It leads to a ton of extra unnecessary drama that people don't want to deal with. Okay? That's all that it does, right? Whenever you mess up at the podium, right? And look, no one wants to deal with extra unnecessary drama. No one. This isn't high school, okay? Number 2, pocket presence. The best quarterbacks throughout the history of the NFL can win from the pocket. Okay? When there's, 2 minutes left on the clock and you're down by 5 and you need a touchdown, like you're not winning the game through running the ball a whole bunch. Like, you have to be able to stand in the pocket and throw the ball on time and on target. Okay? That's how Peyton Manning won his games. That's how Tom Brady won playoff games. That's how Patrick Mahomes wins close playoff games. That's how Josh Allen wins games. Okay? You have to be able to win from the pocket if you're a quarterback, and you want to be a franchise guy that competes to potentially win Super Bowls. Okay? You have to be able to stand in the pocket and throw the ball on time and on target. Speaking of on target, ball placement. You have to be accurate. You have to be accurate if you're going to play quarterback in the NFL. You can't succeed. Okay, you can have the biggest arm in the world. You can have good pocket presence. You can say the right stuff at the podium. Okay, you can, make plays after the original play breaks down. You can make great decisions. But if you can't throw the ball where you want it, it's not happening. Okay, you will not succeed. Okay, Josh Allen didn't succeed in the NFL until he became accurate in his 3rd season. Okay, even though he's wildly athletic. Okay, when it comes to Tua, even though he's not super athletic and he doesn't have a big arm, he has found success in the NFL because of his ability to be accurate. Ball placement and pocket presence. Those are the 2 most important things that I want to see Anthony Richardson develop in over the course of this season. Okay? Like, if the Colts want to win playoff games with Anthony Richardson, he has to be able to win games from the pocket. If the Colts want, to be able to win games, Anthony Richardson has to be accurate when he's throwing the football. He's got to be on time and on target. And like I said earlier, Shane Steichen, the ultimate mechanic, he's going to figure out how to get, our guy, Anthony Richardson, to produce. Okay, I have all the faith and all the confidence in the world in Shane Steichen that he's going to be able to figure it out with Anthony Richardson, who's hopefully going to be the Colts' next franchise quarterback. That is the hope. That is the goal. That is what I want to happen. Thanks for tuning into the Real Jonathan Smith Show. I'll be back again tomorrow from 10 to noon, hopefully live on Twitter again. I don't know what's going on, if I'm just being fully honest, but my account is in review. I think that it's because I changed my profile photo, but I really don't know. So we'll see what winds up happening with that. Thanks again for tuning in to the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Back on the air tomorrow from 10 to noon. The Dan Dockett Show is set to follow me up here on live, 14:30 a.m. The Indy Sports Ticket app from noon to 3. The Dan Dockett Show is coming your way here in about 5 minutes.